Hey everyone, welcome. So today we're going to dive into Genesis chapter 2, and we're not just looking at it as some ancient story, but really as the original blueprint for the life you were designed to live, a life filled with purpose, deep connection, and just wholeness. Let's explore God's beautiful design together.
So we're actually going to start at the end of the chapter with what might be one of the most powerful and honestly heartbreaking sentences in the entire Bible. It describes this state of perfect, total vulnerability with absolutely zero fear, a world before we ever learned how to hide. I mean, just stop and think about that. Can you actually imagine it? A life, a soul, a relationship completely free from that nagging fear of being truly, fully seen, and then rejected. You know, this isn't just some fairy tale. It's like a deep homesickness we all feel, isn't it? A homesickness for Eden. It's the world God designed for us, and believe it or not, it's the one He promises to restore.
All right, so let's dig into the first piece of this divine blueprint, our purpose. God places the man in this beautiful garden, but it's not for a life of leisure. This isn't a retirement community. It's actually for a priestly mission. You see, Eden was the original holy place, a sanctuary where heaven and earth overlapped, and humanity's job was to serve there.
And, this just completely flips our modern idea of work on its head, doesn't it? So often we see our jobs as just a grind for survival, or maybe how we define ourselves and get our worth. But Genesis says, no. Your work was originally designed to be a vocation, a sacred calling, a true partnership with God in cultivating His creation.
And this is where the original Hebrew it's so rich. The word for to work is abad. Now, this isn't just about manual labor. Get this, it is the exact same word used to describe the worshipful service of priests inside God's holy temple. Do you see what that means? Your daily work, whatever you do, was originally intended by God to be an act of worship.
And then you've got the second verb, to keep, which in Hebrew is shamar. And this means to guard, to protect something holy. So you have this incredible pairing, abad and shamar, which is priestly language through and through. The message is crystal clear. The garden was a sanctuary, and we were placed there as its priest stewards, called to cultivate its beauty and guard its sacredness.
Okay, so this brings us to God's very first command to humanity, and I really want you to notice how it begins. It doesn't start with don't. It starts with the most extravagant, over-the-top yes you can possibly imagine. You may surely eat of every tree of the garden.
This just tells you everything you need to know about God's heart. We have this picture of God as a cosmic killjoy, just waiting to shut down our fun. But His very first communication to us reveals who He really is. He's a God of radical generosity. That one boundary He sets, it isn't a cage to trap us. It's a guardrail put there by a wise and loving Father to protect life and joy, not to diminish it.
So what was the big deal with this one tree? Well, the knowledge of good and evil wasn't about getting more information or becoming smarter. It was about seizing authority. It was about humanity saying, I want the right to define reality for myself. I will be my own God. I will decide what is good and what is evil. You see, the root of all sin isn't just breaking a rule. It's trying to take God's place on the throne.
And the consequence God warns about, you shall surely die, it's not some arbitrary punishment from an angry God. It's a simple statement of reality. I mean, think about it. God is the source of all life, so to detach yourself from Him is to detach yourself from life itself. It's like a branch being cut from a tree. It doesn't die later. The process of dying begins the second it's severed. God was giving a loving warning. Don't mistake poison for freedom. And this blueprint of purpose, it leads us directly into the blueprint for communion. For the very first time in the entire creation story, after calling everything good over and over, God declares something is not good. Now, it's not sinful, just incomplete. And this signals a massive truth about us. Even in a perfect paradise, we were not made to be alone. So then we get this really fascinating scene where the man names all the animals. Now, this isn't some weird parade where he's trying to find a wife among the giraffes. No, this is Adam living out his priestly calling, bringing wise, relational order to God's world. It's an act of stewardship that actually reveals both His authority and His purpose.
But in the middle of fulfilling His purpose, something becomes painfully obvious.
As he sees and names every creature, he discovers his own uniqueness and his own profound aloneness. In all of creation, there was nothing and no one that corresponded to him, that could meet the deepest need of his heart for a partner.
So God says he will make an Ezer Kenegdo. Now, our English word helper is just so weak here. It makes it sound like an assistant or a subordinate. But the Hebrew word Ezer is incredibly powerful. It's used over and over again in the Old Testament to describe God himself as the strong helper of Israel. And Kenegdo means corresponding to him, like a mirror image face to face. This is not a junior partner. This is a strong, equal, life-saving ally.
And to create this incredible ally, God does something mysterious and really beautiful. He causes a tardema, a deep sleep, to fall on the man. And this is not just a regular nap. Whenever the Bible uses this specific word, it's a signal that God is about to do something decisive and supernatural.
So what is a tardeme? It's a state where God does his most profound work while we are completely passive, completely helpless. Adam contributes absolutely nothing to this creative act but his own need. The message here is just stunning. God's greatest gifts, especially the gift of relationship, are always received, they're never achieved.
So God takes from the man's tzulah as his side, and he builds the woman. And the ancient Jewish teachers saw the poetry in this. She was not taken from his head to rule over him, or from his feet to be trampled by him, but from his side to be his equal, under his arm to be protected, and near his heart to be loved. And that verb built suggests careful, intentional, divine architecture.
And when the man wakes up and sees her, wow, the very first human words ever recorded in the Bible just spill out of him. And what are they? Not a theological statement, not a command, but pure poetry. It's a cry of wonder, of recognition, of just ecstatic joy. This, at last, is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. He's basically shouting, finally, someone like me.
And right on the heels of that poem, we get the Bible's foundational definition of the marriage covenant. It's a three-part dance, really. First, you leave the primary loyalties of your family. Second, you hold fast to your spouse, creating a new primary loyalty. And third, you become one flesh in a complete union of your whole lives. That verb, hold fast, is the Hebrew word dabak. You can almost think of it as covenant glue. It describes this permanent, loyal, clinging bond. And what's so amazing is that later in the Bible, Israel is commanded to dabak, to cling to the Lord their God. The unbreakable loyalty of a marriage is meant to be a living picture of our covenant relationship with God himself. So when you zoom out, you start to see that Genesis 2 isn't just a story about where we came from. It's the prologue to the entire drama of the Bible. It sets up this beautiful ideal that was so tragically lost, and the rest of Scripture is the story of God's epic, loving, relentless plan to win it all back. And of course, Jesus is the hero of that story. He is the new Adam who comes and perfectly fulfills that priestly calling that we failed to keep. He is the one who was obedient at the tree of the cross, reversing the disobedience that happened at that first tree. He is the true bridegroom who goes into that death-like sleep on the cross, and from his wounded side brings forth his bride, the church. And he endures all of our shame to restore us to that original state of being naked and unashamed. So why does this ancient blueprint matter for you, right here, right now? Because the good news of Jesus isn't just a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's not just about having your guilt wiped away, as amazing as that is. It is about being healed and restored to the person God dreamed you would be when he first designed you, restored in your work, in your love, and in the very depths of your soul. This blueprint from Eden reveals a God whose heart for you is just overflowing with abundance, purpose, and shameless intimacy. So the question I really want to leave you with is this. If God's design is this good, this beautiful, what might change in your life if you decided to stop trying to be your own God and instead just started to trust his?